I'm going to give you the 5 building blocks from Be Resilient, a super fast whiz through them, through the medium of football. I know that was not what you were expecting, was it? I'm not a football watcher, but I'm going to demonstrate the 5 building blocks of resilience through the medium of the nightmare of the French player Mbappe. Now, I can't explain as a non-football watcher why and how I found myself on Monday evening watching the penalty shootout between France and Switzerland. I didn't even mind whether France or Switzerland won. But for those of you who didn't watch it, this was what happened. So all 5 Swiss players had successfully taken their penalties. And so had the first 4 French players. So everything was hanging on Mbappe, their star player, chosen to take the 5th because he was the surest. The Swiss goalie couldn't possibly beat the guy who'd won the World Cup for France in 2019. But he did. Disaster for the French nation, for the French team, and especially for that one man on his own, watched by millions, failing. And many of us will remember Gareth Southgate in the same position 25 years ago. His face and body were frozen in horror, shock, and disbelief. And I think there at that moment, even those of us who've never walked on a football pitch and never done something like that in front of so many people, I think we all felt for him. Whatever else you might know or think about Mbappe, we felt for him on a human level. So put aside any of your dislike or feeling bored with football, but go with me as we talk about him as a human dealing with really public failure. And my immediate reaction, which I said out loud, was, someone go to him, he needs you. And sure enough, within a couple of seconds, his teammates were all around him. And so the first of the 5 building blocks in Be Resilient is about building your support network, knowing who your friends and family and peers and other adults, all the people in your life are, people who will be there for you, people who care, people who will not kick you whether you're down or up. And this is the first message, that resilience is not something you have to do on your own, and you are not more resilient if you try. Humans are biologically wired to connect with other humans, and those connections that we make are fundamental to success and to mental strength. There are not only no prizes for going it alone, but you will do worse if you try. And then the second building block is skills, building your skills, knowing what the skills are that you have and the skills that you want, and using some brain science, which comes into Be Resilient, as you can imagine, to make them better. And character strengths are skills too. So it's not just physical skills like footballing skills, it's all of the many skills of cognitive skills and physical skills and social skills and character strengths too. And in this chapter, you learn about growth mindset and why a parent saying you're good at something is not enough to build confidence. Mbappe had obvious skills, and that gave him self-esteem and confidence. And in Be Resilient, I talk about the difference between those two things. But sometimes even after practice, things go wrong. And you then need the third building block, your coping strategies. And I talk about how humans are wired biologically to seek relief from pain, whether that pain is mental or physical, including the pain of stress. So we have and we put in place intuitively behaviors that we don't even think about. They make us feel better in the short term, and that's why rightly we do them. But some of them also have negative results, either in the short term or more likely in the long term. So think about things like smoking, alcohol, self-harm, the compulsive use of food and exercise, and the routines that someone with OCD might use to reduce anxiety. And you can see that they are all coping strategies. They feel as though, and indeed they are, helping you cope at that moment, but they also can very often cause problems looking ahead. And so we call them negative coping strategies. So we need to think about, and Mbappe needs to think about, positive coping strategies, things like going for a run or a walk, spending time on a hobby, listening to music, reading for pleasure, chatting to a friend, playing sport, keeping fit, going to the cinema, baking a cake, inviting friends around for a meal. All of those things that also make you feel better and help salve your pain, your mental or physical pain, but don't have long-term negative consequences. And he is going to need the fourth building block, courage. But I hope his friends will point out that he already has courage. The courage to stand there in the first place and take that penalty is immense courage, way more than most of us have or display or are asked to display. And he will be able to build that courage back again if he reads Be Resilient. And in that chapter, I talk about balancing optimism with realism, because sometimes you have to allow yourself to be realistic. In other words, to doubt, but have the courage to do it anyway, because that's what courage is. Courage isn't 100% believing you can do it. That's not courage. Courage is doubting whether you'll be able to do it and still trying. And so to go forward into your future, you have to hold both doubt and confidence. And the final chapter is about building your future. It's about knowing yourself. It's about deciding what's important to you and what's not, what fits with you and what doesn't, and using all the previous 4 chapters to make choices that are right for your future, because it's your future. It's not someone else's. It's not your parents. It's not your teachers. It's yours. So resilience is something we can all learn and grow. There is no fairy waving resilience fairy dust over the baby's cot. There are no genes for resilience. There's no part of the brain which is for resilience. It's something that we learn as we grow older, ideally, but young people can be brilliantly resilient and older people can be more fragile. We learn it by trying and failing, by listening to voices that tell the truth, by building and knowing our support team, by growing and valuing our skills, by choosing positive coping strategies and rejecting negative ones, by building a positive but realistic mindset so that courage is within our grasp, and by pushing open the scary doors of an unknowable future with self-belief and ownership, so that when we succeed, it is our success and not someone else's. Resilience is about building the boat that will carry us across the ocean of our life, and it must survive unpredictable weather. But if we're always worrying about the possible storm tomorrow, we won't enjoy the sunshine today, and then we're not living life to the full. I'm going to finish in a minute by reading the last page of Be Resilient, but I hope this has given you a sense of how the book is full of psychology, deep psychology, brain science, calm wisdom, and practical activities. It's written for anyone of the age of about 10 or 11 and upwards, and adults, including Mbappe, would learn a lot from it. On my website, you'll find lots of resources. You'll find webinars, recorded ones and live ones, and materials for parents and schools. And you'll also find 2 relevant blog posts, one from Friday, when I answered the call from one of you about how to help a child after a traumatic experience at school, and a post which went out today, so it's today on my blog, which explains what cake has to do with resilience. And it's not what you think, that's resistance, not resilience. So there's a cake cost benefit analysis on my blog today. So let me just read, it's 1 page. So it's the and finally. I always have an and finally bit at the end of my books, summing it all up. You now have the tools for building your resilience. You can sail across the ocean of your life and weather any storms. You can also enjoy the calm waters and beautiful days along the way. You've started to become more confident, and you know how to focus on developing the skills you want. Your growth mindset helps you remember that when you want to learn something or be better at anything, you can do that by practicing, trying, building the connections in your brain that bring success. And you're prioritizing your well-being, making sure you eat great food, exercise, sleep well, and relax often. You have some powerful coping strategies, and you know how to avoid the harmful ones. You have a whole range of stress-busting solutions so that you can let stress do its job of pushing you to super performance instead of dragging you down and making you feel awful. You have grown your courage, finding ways to face the things you fear and keep those fears in perspective. Bad things happen, but the fear of them will not spoil your life because you won't let it. You can have dreams, but those dreams don't have to be exact or planned. You can't know what lies ahead in your future. You do know that there are steps that you can take to help push your future in the directions you want and to give you a fulfilling life. and your future may be different from and better than how you imagine, and you know how to face it with hope and optimism and courage. That's resilience. You are far more resilient than you were at the start of this book. You have the tools to become even more so as you go through life, whatever happens to you. It's your future, your life. Be bold, be confident, be proud, hope and believe, learn and grow. Be brilliantly resilient. You can do this.